Welcome to the Uncanny Women Podcast, where we have honest, year-round conversations with women and gender-diverse authors and filmmakers in horror. Here, we explore the voices behind the work and how lived experience shapes the stories they tell. I'm your host, horror writer and founder of the SoCo Women in Horror Festival, KJ Brantley. Now let's step into today's conversation and meet our guest.
Today, I'm joined by Angela Sylvaine, Bram Stoker Award-nominated author and self-proclaimed cheerful goth, which she absolutely is. She writes speculative fiction, horror, and her work really ranges from horror comedy like Frostbite and Cold Snap to something much darker and more gothic in The Dead Spot, Stories of Lost Girls. She's also very widely published across anthologies, magazines, and podcasts. I feel like I can't pick up a collection these days without Angela Sylvaine being in it. So,
that's the goal.
Amazing, right? And they're all amazing. I love it. Yeah, Poison Soup for the Macabre Soul, I think it is one of
yes.
Really essay in that as well.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm very lucky to have her nearby as a fellow Coloradan and Horror Writers Association Colorado chapter member, and to have her on my show today. So, Angela, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
To start, how did you find your way into horror? Like, when did you realize this was the space you wanted to stay in?
Well, as a reader, I definitely started young, which I think is a lot of our origin stories is, some of the kid horror like Bunnicula and scary stories to read in the dark definitely were things I had at a young age and then progressed towards Stephen King too young. I think that's pretty universal. As far as writing horror, I didn't really come to it until like my mid-30s. I started writing late anyway. Like I never was a writer. A lot of people I feel like talk about how they've always written. And that is not true for me, actually. I've always been very creative and done a lot of different kinds of art just for fun. But I only started writing in my early 30s. And when I first started, I did not know I was a horror writer, but my stories always went pretty dark. So then eventually I had to accept it. It's like, I think I'm writing horror, and that's like my natural fit.
Oh my gosh, that's actually a very common thing I hear as well. And same with me. You're like, gosh, you're really macabre.
I know. You try to fit into other boxes, and it's like just not going to work. And I think part of the like developing confidence as a writer is sort of accepting who you are naturally. Because I've definitely gone through that. Like I don't have an MFA, for example. And I have, like when I was starting out, I definitely had a lot of like hangups about that. Like maybe I'm not as good of a writer because I don't have an education in it. And, I'm not as literary. But nowadays I've pretty much accepted that's just not what I do. That has value, but like wacky genre fiction has value too. So,
yeah, well, I think it all is. There's a lot of different things I could say about the just title literary. I think that can be very exclusive when a lot of work is literary, but because it's horror or things like that, it's like, written off. Or I think your books are amazing. You're an incredibly talented writer.
Thank you.
Definitely proof that you do not need an MFA.
Good, because they're too expensive.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. Yeah, are they worth it? But The Dead Spot, like Stories of Lost Girls, you were nominated for a Bram Stoker Award for that. And I would say that leans into literary territory as well. So, I mean, you can't write yourself off with that.
That was really gratifying to have that kind of recognition, for sure. And that's definitely some of my darker work, which a little bit harder to handle as a reader and as a writer.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that it resonated with people. Yeah,
that's amazing.
I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, and you describe yourself, as we mentioned, as a cheerful goth, which I love. What does that mean to you, and like how does that show up in your writing?
Well, I think it means like externally I'm very happy and cheerful, but I have sort of like a dark center, like a dark caramel center or something. I just like spooky things. I like scary things. I also like being very introspective about dark things, and thinking about my own experiences and those of everyone around me. I try to be very empathetic. And honestly, I think it partially comes from like my upbringing. I grew up in North Dakota, so I very much have like the Midwestern nice. That's just my personality because of how I was raised. And I think a lot of girls, frankly, are like smile all the time, never let on anything is wrong, put on the perfect image at all times. So that was definitely how I was raised. But I was actually raised in a home with domestic violence. So I think that's kind of a good example of where cheerful goth comes from.
Right.
Is like cheerful on the surface while you're dealing with a few things on the inside. And horror was always a good way for me to cope with all those things. So yeah, I think that's just now who I've kind of become.
Yeah, and that's interesting. It's like a protective mechanism. But yeah, I can't imagine you any other way because if it's awful, I think to have to explore those things. I think a lot of us have dealt with different experiences, especially if we are writing horror. A lot of us have dealt with different kinds of and similar traumas and all that. And I think it's especially unique to women. Women have their own particular brand of trauma that we're trying to work through. And so, how do you, maybe this is how you've dealt with like these harder things in life in general, but how do you like balance these tones in your writing? So like with Frostbite, I've read Frostbite and Cold Snap, absolutely love them. And they're just feel so bright and sometimes playful at times, and then until they're not.
Yeah.
And it gets really pretty. I mean, it's dealing with some dark stuff. You don't hold back on some of like deaths or things that occur in it. How do you balance that tone, and how intentional is that tonal shift for you when you're writing?
I think it is pretty intentional, but also there is an aspect of it that comes naturally just because that's how I am. I deal with trauma with a sense of humor. I'm definitely one to make like jokes to try and like ease tension. And also kind of see the bright side of things if I can. And I think that shows up in Frostbite and Cold Snap. And like, I also think playing with nostalgia can be really effective because nostalgia, like by definition, because those books take place in the 90s, can be very sentimental, where you kind of look back and you see mostly the good parts of that time. And so I think for readers, it makes it a little cozier and a little more comfortable to confront dark things. If you have, it's kind of like having for me anyway, like having a security blanket so that when you come across the dark things, like for example, like you've mentioned, there's deaths in Frostbite and Cold Snap. There's the main character dealing with her mother having dementia. There's a lot of betrayal. All kinds of stuff like that. There's religious extremism. But I think for me, maybe it's a little easier to confront those things when you have the safety blanket of nostalgia and a little bit of comedy to like break the tension. So that's kind of how I approach it.
I love that. I know that is so true. Like being born in the 80s, but mostly a 90s kid, I definitely, even more so lately, I've been really drawn to those like nostalgic settings and things like that. And yeah, it's like cool to like bring you back there because it's funny, even with these horrific things happening, you're right, that does add that extra, little cushion. I think, is it called the Holodome in Cold Snap? The Holodome. I'm like, I never actually got to go to one, but I've been to several like 90s type places like that too when I was a kid, and I was just like, oh, even that. I was like, that does bring me back, even though there's like killer things, worms, things on the loose. Like,
I know.
I would still go hang out there.
I never got to stay in a holodome either, which was like a fancy Holiday Inn with an indoor pool and mini golf and an arcade, and it was kind of like tropical themed. I always wanted to go, so maybe that's why I put it in here, because I never got the chance. But
I think we'll have to bring that back. Maybe here in Colorado, we'll have to.
I think so too. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, tiki bar. I know. I would spend a lot of time there.
Me too.
Staycation. What also really stood out to me in those stories is like how much they center things like we kind of just brushed upon was family grief, optimism, resilience, like even in really dark situations. Do you feel like you consciously like turn to those themes with your next book? Like in the future, are you looking to explore some other themes, or is that something that you feel like really consciously drawn to return to?
Definitely the resilience, particularly of women, of women characters, is something I return to all the time. I very rarely write from the perspective of men, just because I understand women a little better. And I like to write stories about them trying to be successful, even if they fail.
Mm-hmm.
So, like in The Dead Spot, there's not a lot of happy endings. There's a lot of tragedy, but they're the kind of women and girls that keep fighting. So I hope it's still kind of inspiring, to us to keep fighting. So yeah, I think that's probably the main theme I always have in my writing. And what I'm working on next, I would say how it's shifting a little bit. And I think this is probably true of a lot of women, is frankly a little more angry. Because I think, at least from my perspective, from my sheltered perspective, because I certainly have privilege in many ways, I probably felt things were getting better for women and girls for a long time within my lifetime. And then during the past, like 8 to 10 years roughly, we've seen some steps back, which is really scary and kind of makes me mad. So yeah, I think my next book is going to have more rage maybe than my prior books.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited to see that one actually from you. And it's definitely warranted nowadays.
Yeah.
But it's like, we don't want to make Angela angry. Like this is what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to eliminating some people that deserve it fictionally.
Yeah. That's always the best use of horror writing.
Yeah, can be very cathartic.
Yep. That's amazing. I can't wait for that announcement. I'm sure that's like still in the works, and I'm not sure.
It is. Yeah.
But I will look out for that. But absolutely, the female rage piece. I mean, it's more and more prevalent now. I was talking with, RJ Joseph earlier as well, and kind of like a similar thing like we were talking about, where lately I feel the urge to write, I see something horrible happen, on the news or Facebook. I can't even look at Facebook anymore. Yeah. I'm not allowed to. My husband told me because every horrible thing that it knows it feeds into it, which is also another problem with social media and those companies.
100%.
Just seeing these horrible things happen and feel like I can write in horror these horrible revenge stories now on these people and earn some vindication for these victims that didn't get it in real life. And
100%. Yes. Yeah. And it's like you're practicing, we're like all kind of getting our courage up.
Yeah.
And following the examples of our characters to be brave and keep fighting.
Yeah, fight for ourselves, as women, fight for people who can't fight for themselves as easily. Yeah, I love that about horror and, fiction in general. So I actually have not finished all of The Dead Spot yet. I've read all the other books, and that is
Thank
one.
You.
Yeah, I have. And that is one, I'm like, how, why have I not? But I have my reasons because I've been busy with kids and things.
No, but, never explain why you haven't finished your TBR. Totally understandable.
It's devastating though, but especially before I talk to you. So I want to have a follow-up conversation with you. I already know because I need to finish the other half of that. And I know I'll have more I want to ask about that. But I would like to know how you would describe, to readers, listeners here who haven't read it as well fully or at all, what they can expect from that collection compared to your other novels.
I would say it's definitely darker, which my short fiction tends to be, because you can really go hard in a short story, hard and fast, and dark. Whereas when I'm writing novels, I don't tend to want to live in that world so long.
That makes sense.
But it's basically all stories about women and girls that are facing some kind of huge obstacles in the world, whether that be discrimination or monsters or ghosts or whatever it may be. They're all facing some pretty insurmountable obstacles, but they all fight. And like I said, there's not a lot of happy endings, which is why it's called The Dead Spot. And the stories of lost girls, because unfortunately, a lot of these girls and women are lost. But I still think it's kind of valuable stories about just all kinds of struggles that women go through. I think there's a lot of parallels, even though there's a lot of speculative fiction in there and things that don't necessarily exist. Hopefully, people can take parallels from it. And I think it'll mainly make folks feel probably sad and maybe a little angry.
Yeah, that's good. If you're not doing that, then what are you? That's the point. But yeah, I think that's important too. And that's like I've read like Hell Hath No Sorrow, like a Woman Haunted by R.J.
RJ's so good.
Oh my gosh, yeah, she's incredible. And like what I have read of The Dead Spot too, I feel like hits a similar vein. It's something I don't think like other genres outside of horror do as well. It's kind of, I feel like that speculative element and adding that kind of like filter to it actually, I feel like brings more of the emotional truth to these experiences than if you just like wrote the, story as is without all of that, because I feel like it needs to go to that more visceral or horrific level to like to garner those emotions from the reader, like that real response of what it actually would feel like to be like go through some of these like real life experiences, maybe like as a woman. That, but
it's like exaggerated, I think, and that helps really like make an impact. I think even in horror comedy, like with Frostbite and Cold Snap, one of the kind of subplots is about a cult, which is a church in town that essentially becomes really extremist, and so they sort of become a cult. But I think that's something that really is something we face every day, right? That is like a real world example of people kind of getting entrenched in their beliefs and becoming more and more severe and more kind of separated from the rest of society, their families, their friends. So in the book, it's because a meteor lands with alien worms, but and it's like exaggerated and heightened, but actually that totally happens every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Like it's just as horrific, but maybe when there's not that speculative element, people become more immune to it or let it kind of go under the radar. And
that's right.
Like, but yeah, I know that cult is so creepy. You would never realize too how scary an old lady can be.
Yeah, exactly.
My character Irene. You'll have to.
Irene. Boo.
I know. Something I love about you, I think, are like this. From what I know about you so far and your writing, is you have such grace for people actually too as well. like and I love that actually. Like, you see like that humanity in everyone, and everyone has their own story. And even I was like one of your characters, I was like, God, I wish she would die. She's so awful. And then you're like, just wait it out and like tell me what you think when you finish it. And
I remember us talking about that.
Yeah. And I was like, you're right. Like, yeah, there is like this person's been through a lot herself. She is also a victim kind of thing. And then also you're like, oh, maybe I didn't really want that to happen to her.
Good. I'm glad it worked.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, wow. But yeah, I love that. Is that something that you think that you do in like intentionally, or do you think that's just your own like values and views on people and life that just shine through in your writing?
I think I've always kind of tried to take to heart the like writer advice that villains should be three-dimensional, right? So even if it's the bad guy, they're probably the hero of their own story. Most likely they think they're doing what's right for some reason. So if you can bring a little bit of that in, I just think it makes it more interesting to have like real people, Yeah. I just like to try and make them well-rounded, even if at the end they're still pretty evil.
Yeah, because that's true. I mean, I think there's a gray area. Not everyone's all bad. Not every, and not everyone's all good. So that, if to create a realistic character too, to bring in those dimensions, I think like really works in your writing. So,
thanks.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I feel for every character, like you just have so much investment in all of the characters by the end, and you just like want to be in their world more, and it also makes you obviously sad if something happens to them without giving anything away. But
yeah, try to make you have feelings,
Yes,
if I can make you cry, that's bonus.
Yeah, you're like, that's the goal. And laugh. And, yeah.
Yeah, and laugh.
Yeah, just a little bit of that. But so I guess I already asked you what you're working on next. That was one of my questions, and I'm super excited about that. Oh my goodness.
Thanks.
But I wanted to know, what do you think is something maybe that people don't understand about maybe being a woman in horror, or something you'd like people to understand more, or that they don't know, that they maybe don't know more about being, a woman creator in horror?
Well, I definitely think there's judgment around horror authors in general. Certainly men get that too, where when you say you're a writer and you tell someone what you write, they certainly will wonder why you write horror. But I think it is much worse for women in horror, where it really goes against the idea of what a woman is supposed to be, right? Like, what is wrong with you that you are writing horror? Doesn't really make a nice lady,
Right. That's the extra layer. You were totally right. You're like, yeah, for men in any way, they're like, oh gosh, you're kind of gross. Like, that's your violence. But if a woman does it, it's like way less acceptable.
Yeah.
That at least I think maybe is getting better. Maybe.
I hope so. Yeah, I think so. And we'll try to show them, Yeah. And I think, this is not something you don't know. I'm sure you know this, but we in the horror community know that actually horror writers are some of the nicest people. And frankly, some of the most well-adjusted people I know. I think of writing horror as almost like a form of therapy sometimes, So I think, not that all writers aren't working through various issues and trauma and everything when they put their art on the page, but I think horror writers particularly do that because we're really facing things that are very scary. Oftentimes our personal biggest fears are what we write about, So I'm also kind of have like a superior attitude about it in some ways, where I'm like, well, horror writers are kind of awesome because we are doing the hard work on ourselves.
I mean, we may be biased, but I completely agree with that. First of all, I've met a lot of different writers, and when I wasn't really aware, like similar to you, I wasn't aware that I was a horror writer. I mean, I used to write Blair Witch Project fan fiction when I was like 10.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I was like a weirdo. I mean, I was probably cool, right? But I was like, looking back on it, people would be like, oh my God, what was wrong with that child?
I think that's great.
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess there were signs possibly, but I never really considered that about myself. And I always thought maybe I was going to write, I was going to be like Hunter S. Thompson or at one point, or or literary, I don't know. I'll be like, I don't know, Ernest Hemingway, Sylvia Plath. I don't know. Well,
yeah, totally.
Maybe close to Sylvia Plath. But I think I had someone tell me, I went to a writer's workshop, and I've been to a lot of different, things. It was like a pitch conference, and the guy had told me that the workshop leader, he was like, this is like a horror novel. Horror. And I was trying to say it was like something else. And I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. It is like horror. And I was like, oh, I guess that's maybe what I need to lean into. But also something I discovered doing all of these things as well was just what you said, that there are some people that do need to work through a lot of things writing other genres. You're like, these people probably should write more horror.
Maybe even just for yourself.
Yeah, just for yourself.
Just for personal growth in your journal or whatever.
Absolutely, exactly. Try that out. I love the horror community. I've really spent in the past year and a half more time being with other horror people. And I'm like, oh, I finally found my people. I have PTSD from corporate worlds or just other environments, school onwards. You almost have that flinch reflex. Oh my gosh, can I trust people? Or and then you realize, yes, in this community, you really can guard down. Everyone's supporting each other, and everyone is so vastly different. They all come from so many different backgrounds in this community. It's wild, but they somehow, at least the majority, in general, it seems my experience has been everyone's supportive of each other, supportive of everyone's way of life, their writing styles. There's hardly any judgment that I've experienced. And you're right, horror people are just the nicest people.
Yeah. And I think the thing about like being outside looking in that people need to realize is that horror is so broad. You really can get like cozy horror if you just want to like dip your
Yep.
toes in, and you can go all the way to the end of the spectrum and get like extreme.
Yeah.
Or you can get
Yeah.
genre crossovers. Do you like sci-fi? Do you like romance? You know,
Mhm.
whatever you want, you can get in horror. And I don't know
Yeah.
that people always know that, you know, and that it's okay to only like certain things and not like other things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you might find too, like I do think everyone, I love those things first of all, of, like recommending things based on your style of like what kind of horror you would probably like to dip your toes into. But I do find too, like the more you get into it, you realize like maybe actually like something I was kind of scared of reading, it's actually pretty cool. Like
Yeah.
I kind of like this. My husband actually helped me. I love horror too, but I really love like gothic stuff too, like
Mhm.
you know. I love like Uncle Silas, all that stuff, Frankenstein, whatnot. But I also love some other things too. But I never really like. My husband bought me the book The Troop,
Yeah, by
like
Nick
a couple years
Cutter.
ago.
Is
By
that
Nick Cutter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is something I never would have chosen for myself, like before, you know. And I'm especially adverse to like. I'm terrified of parasites. It's like bad, and so I was like, this is one of the worst possible book you could have gotten for me. But now it's like actually one of my favorite books. It was like, wow, I never thought I could actually like read something like that, but it actually helps you. That's another thing about horror, is facing your fears, like you
That's
were talking,
right.
you know, and it actually, it's like that, what do they call that, therapy, where you know,
Yeah, like
are
immersion therapy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like immersion therapy too. A little bit.
That's true.
Yeah. So what do you think someone might, you know, someone who hasn't read your work, like why do you think that they should read, you know, Frostbite and Cold Snap? What kind of, I guess, reader do you think should dive into that?
Well, technically it's like upper YA. So even though a lot of adults read it because it's so nostalgic for the 90s, it's really fine for anyone 13 and up is kind of what I would say. Like anyone who liked Stranger Things will like it, which goes across generations. But, you know, I think what people are going to get out of it is a lot of adventure. You know, it's kind of fun, some scares, but also a lot of heart. You know, it's ultimately about friendship and family and found family, and just kind of this idea of you don't necessarily have to have any special powers or anything to fight back. You know, it's basically about like two best friends who end up trying to save their town just because no one else can. And there's nothing special about them except that they show up. So I think that's kind of a nice message for everybody, especially right now. So yeah, hopefully anyone who likes that idea will like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I loved it. It was so fun and nostalgic. You know, scary at times, you know, in the right way. And yeah, you're right though. Yeah, it would be totally appropriate for anyone to pick up and read and enjoy.
As long as they don't mind gore. I will put that out there.
That's
There's
true. I become a little
amount
mean
of gore. So if you are sensitive to that,
yeah,
it's kind of wacky gore generally, but if you really don't like any blood and guts, then it's probably not for you.
Yeah, not total splatterpunk realm.
No,
but
not extreme.
Yeah,
because it is more comedic. But yeah, it's not. It's also not like Gothic, where typically you don't have a lot of like.
Where it's
blood.
all atmosphere.
Yeah,
totally, totally. So for readers who might not typically pick up horror with humor or queer relationships, what do you think they might be surprised by in your work?
So first off, I am bi and I write a lot of bi characters. That wasn't really something you talked about when I was growing up. So I write a lot of characters who know they're bi, and it's just kind of a normal thing because I think I'd like that to be normalized, you know? So ultimately, what they're going to see is just like what they would see with a straight character. And there obviously are straight characters too. It's just a little twist on that, you know, they might have a crush on the girl from high school, or they might start dating the guy that was in their class. Like, you know, it's not really that much different from like straight relationships. So I hope it just kind of looks normal, other than the occasional, you know, realistic idea that it can be turned against you.
Right.
So like in Frostbite, the main character, Raylene, has a little bit of a crush on someone who I think probably kind of returned her feelings, but didn't want to didn't accept that about herself and ended up making it kind of a joke for other people, which is realistic. That can happen. So, you're kind of making yourself vulnerable when you admit those things. So yeah, that's in there just because it is really part of what happens. But mostly it's just kind of normal relationships.
Yeah, actually, I loved that character arc in the story between both of the books. First of all, that was one of the really tragic parts I thought of the book, was that relationship, or that, experience with that character. And also, that was a character arc for Raylene, that she went from experiencing that bullying and that response to her identity, and her becoming, as she became more resilient in general. That was one of the things that she just kind of claimed for herself even more by the second book, which I absolutely loved.
We gotta give her love interest. She deserves it. She's been through a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I thought that was perfect, and a great, closure to her arc, at least until we get a third book. Yeah. Good. We need a third.
We'll see what happens.
Yes. Yeah, we have to find out. And I can see now there are some lingering questions we do have to find out from the second book. I have some, questions similar to Rachel, who was the host at your book launch. Has some questions that I will have to talk to you about later too.
I think it's that kind of style, both Frostbite and Cold Snap. I think we maybe discussed this last time I saw you, but it's kind of like in the 80s and 90s movies where there's just, it leaves it open at the end. It's not totally wrapped up. The example I use is in Critters, when there's critter eggs still under the porch. It's like that at the end of both books. It's like relatively satisfying ending, but things are not totally normal again.
I love that. It's perfect. And you'd be completely satisfied reading it, not having a third, but I will not be fully satisfied till there's a third.
I'm hoping there is a third.
Yes, there will. Good. So my last question that I want to ask before we end our wonderful conversation, I wish I could talk to you even more, and I'm sure we will in the future. But I want to ask everyone on each of these episodes, what's a horror book by a woman or underrepresented voice that you think people need to read?
Well, first of all, I got to shout out my favorite author. And you also, I know, talked with her today, Gwendolyn Kais.
Oh.
Probably my favorite woman author writing today. So I always highly recommend all of her books. But she doesn't necessarily need me to recommend her because she's doing pretty well. So I'm going to try to find one from my list that is a little more obscure, that could use a little bit more of a boost. So I'm looking at my list right now. Okay. I'm going to say With Friends Like These by V.S. Lawrence.
I just finished that one.
Yeah. You did? Did you like it?
Yeah, I loved it.
It's fun, right?
Yeah, it was so cool. Yeah, if you like My Best Friend's Exorcism.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very nostalgic. I think it has throwbacks to those kind of 80s slashers and summer camp movies.
With a really cool twist.
But with a really cool twist, And I think VS is just doing really interesting things. She's, she's got a couple books out, and I'm really excited to see what she does in the future.
Yeah, I love that shout out. And that's a great one. Yeah, and I think she deserves a lot more attention for those books. And she's so prolific, honestly. I'm like, how do you get these already? She's already such
I know.
Crazy writer. That's amazing. Wonderful. And I've read that one, but definitely listeners, add that to your TBR as well. Yeah, everyone go out and buy Frostbite and the newly released Cold Snap, the sequel to Frostbite, out now, and go ahead and pick up The Dead Spot while you're at it. Amazing. Yeah, it's just amazing collection of work that you have. And
thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela, for being here. And Angela, can you share how our listeners can follow you?
Yes. So I have a website, angelasylvaine.com, where you can find all my links, but I'm most active on Instagram under my name, Angela Sylvaine. And I'm also very friendly. So if you talk to me online or we happen to meet in person, please don't hesitate to say hi.
Yeah, she's the nicest person. She doesn't wait. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate you. And I hope to talk to you again soon.
That's all for today's episode of Uncanny Women. If you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe to catch our weekly episodes. You can also follow us at Uncanny Women Podcast and at Women in Horror Festival Co. See you next time.